We want to get our freedoms back. And if these government agencies run by bureaucrats are going to be taking our freedoms away, making it difficult for us to run our businesses, making it difficult for us to live our lives and thrive, then we will push back as the state of Arizona.
Hi everyone, this is Veronica Kirilenko of the New American Magazine. One of the most closely watched gubernatorial races this November will be the one taking place in Arizona between America First candidate Kari Lake and radical leftist Katie Hobbs. Today, I'm privileged to speak with Ms. Lake, who is endorsed by President Donald Trump and whose opponents won't even engage in an open debate against her. Ms. Lake, thank you so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Ms. Lake, when I see a political candidate refusing to publicly debate, especially in such a close race, I assume she's either hiding something or believes that she won't fare well against her opponents, which is you, or she's unprepared for difficult questions, or all of the above. What do you make of Ms. Hobbs' refusal to meet with you?
I think you nailed it. It's all of those points that you just made. I mean, she was a lobbyist, and then she was a legislator, and now she's Secretary of State, and she's not done well at any of those jobs. So if she has to stand for her record, it's embarrassing, some of the things that she voted for and some of the things she voted against when she was a legislator. And then, of course, she's been our Secretary of State in charge of our elections primarily. And that's been a disaster. She's incompetent at what she does. When she was secretary, or when she was in the legislature, rather, she was found guilty by two juries, unanimous verdicts, of racism and sexism for paying a Black employee, a female employee, less than she was paying her counterparts. And when this woman had the courage to stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, why am I not being paid what the others were doing the same job? Katie Hobbs, my opponent, fired that woman rather than do the right thing and apologize and pay her what she was worth. So the people of Arizona are paying almost $3 million in settlement charges because of that racism of my opponent. So she knows if she hits the debate stage with me, it's not going to go well for her. But darn it, we're at a time in America, and we have major issues facing Arizona, and the people of this state deserve to hear where I stand and where my opponent stands, so they can compare and contrast and decide who is best to lead this state.
Ms. Lake, on your website, you indicate that you continue to be a voice for the silent majority suffering at the hands of cancel culture, among other terrible things perpetrated in America by radical lefts. And just recently, one of the prominent conservative commentators, Steve Crowder, was suspended from YouTube for streaming your interview. The platform sent him a letter, and they explained that content advanced false claims about the widespread fraud, errors, or glitches that changed the outcome of the 2020 presidential election, which is not allowed to say on YouTube, and as well as all other social media platforms. What was your reaction to that?
You know, it doesn't surprise me anymore. It's sad to say that it doesn't surprise me, but censorship has become so prevalent, unfortunately, in the time that we're living in, because they're trying to silence people with different ideologies, different political beliefs. They're trying to stop us because they know that we are a movement of the people. The Republican Party is now the party of we, the people, and they need to stop that in order to stay in control, and they'll do anything to stop it, even if it means stopping a candidate from speaking. I believe that is election interference. And when I'm governor, we're going to go hard at these companies, these tech companies, who try to silence people who are running for office. You cannot get involved in an election that way and try to influence the outcome because you own a tech company. And we're going to go hard on that, much like Governor DeSantis has. We will be pushing for fines for any tech company who tries to silence somebody who's running for statewide office or any office.
On your website, you also specifically mention election integrity as one of the key issues that you plan to address as governor. So what's your plan to ensure that what happened in 2020 won't happen again?
Well, we're going to take a look at all of the areas and loopholes where there were issues, and we're going to make sure that we can't repeat those issues again. We just want honest elections. And I want to do this because I want to have a country. And if we don't have a secure border and if we don't have honest elections, then we don't have a country. And so I will work with our state legislators to come up with legislation that secures our elections so that we know that when we go to bed on election night, whether we're Democrats, independents, or Republicans, we know who the winner was. We're not counting ballots for 10 days like we have in the past. And B, we can live with that outcome because we know that the process was fair and that the laws and the rules were followed. And so regardless if our guy wins or loses, we can live with it because we know it was a fair process. But what we can't live with is every single election feeling as if there were issues or noticing there were issues or seeing fraud and not having it dealt with. So we're just going to make sure we have good laws in place that make sure that our elections are fair and honest. I think if you ask most Arizonans and most Americans, they want that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but just not the Democrats because they believe it's racist.
Well, and let me tell you a little bit about disenfranchising minority voters. For 2 decades in San Luis, Arizona, a 85% Hispanic population lives in that town. And many thought that the way elections were to go is that you take your mail-in ballot and you hand it over to somebody, they pay you, and then that person fills out your ballot. That's disenfranchising a minority vote.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to stop that kind of behavior from happening. The people of that community had their vote taken away, and it's not right. And the Republicans are not responsible for that. And so what we want and what I want as an American, first and foremost, is honest elections so that whatever your political beliefs are, you know that your legal ballot counted. One legal ballot per legal voter. And when we go to bed, we know who the winner is and we can live with it, whether our person won or lost, because we know it was honest. And we will restore honesty to our elections.
That would be fantastic. You said earlier in August that you detected some stealing already going on in respect to your own election. Would you please provide more details on that, as well as your plan to prevent fraud?
We had a big election integrity group that we were working with, and we spotted some issues that we have documented, and it's been put into a report. And I believe they're going to be handing that information over to our AG's office, which is the office that you would hand that over to. I'm not comfortable sharing it with the media. And I'm not accusing you of being the fake news, but of course the fake news wanted me to hand everything over. And I said, why would I hand over anything to the fake news? You guys don't report fairly. So we're going to take what we found, which were some problems, and we're handing it over to the authorities, and we're going to let them handle it. And so I will not be saying what we found, but we are making sure that gets into the proper hands, the proper law enforcement, so that they can examine it and verify that evidence and see what they can do with it to make sure that doesn't happen again in this upcoming election. But listen, we had problems in 2020, but let's look at this last primary election. 1 hour into voting on election day, August 2nd, in Pinal County, one of our largest counties in Arizona, 1 hour into election day, they ran out of Republican ballots for the primary.
Mm-hmm.
They also, in Pinal County, misprinted 63,000 ballots for the election. So we still have issues. We have incompetence, we have maladministration, we have rules not being followed. And because of that, we end up with a distrust in our election system. And we can't keep having that. We need to fix these problems. It's possible to do that. And we're going to do that when I'm governor.
For sure. Another important issue is we see how DOJ and its FBI, CDC, FDA, IRS, as well as many other federal agencies are going rogue. What do you think can be done by the governors to push back against unconstitutional usurpations by the federal government?
Wow, we've handed over so much control, ceded so much control to the federal government, and we've really lost in many ways some of our states' rights. And we need to reexert our power as states. We are a collection of 50 sovereign states. We created the federal government, not the other way around. And our sovereignty is very important as states, and we're going to exert that sovereignty and make sure that Arizona stands up for Arizona. And we're going to push back on these agencies that have unelected bureaucrats who are heavy-handed, making our lives miserable. They're not elected by the people, and they're trying to control we the people. And I believe that the case, EPA versus West Virginia, which was just ruled on in the last session of the Supreme Court, really kind of cracked open the door a bit to take on some of these, I don't even know how to word it, these agencies that have just pushed their bureaucratic power and are trying to control our lives. And that really opened the door, I believe, to push back against a lot of these federal agencies who do not have the power over the people that they have been trying to have. And we're going to push back on that. We want to get our freedoms back. And if these government agencies run by bureaucrats are going to be taking our freedoms away, making it difficult for us to run our businesses, making it difficult for us to live our lives and thrive, then we will push back as the state of Arizona.
This is good to know. And so many issues in Arizona, and you already mentioned that, were arguably created or exacerbated by the Biden administration open border policies. How do you plan to derail them and oppose them?
Well, the guarantee clause of the U.S. Constitution requires that the federal government protect us from invasion and protect us, and they're not doing that. We had a great policy in place under President Donald J. Trump. On day one, Joe Biden came in, he pulled that border security policy back, and he's exposed the good people of Arizona to crime, to the cartels, to drugs pouring in, killing our young people, to people pouring in across our border, driving our wages down. It's hurting the people of Arizona. We are being invaded. And so we're going to go right to that same document, the U.S. Constitution. There's a remedy in there, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3. We are being invaded. Our citizens are in danger, and time is of the essence. There's no time for delay. And when you meet those criteria, then you as the state can take over for your own security and protect your people. We plan to do that. We're going to issue a declaration of invasion on day one. We're going to get our National Guard involved. And I've talked to Governor Ron DeSantis. He's willing to send Florida's National Guard to help out, control the border, and stop people from coming across our border. And we believe that other like-minded states will send help as well. They'll send their National Guard members, and we're basically going to stop people from coming in. Right now, they come across our border. The Border Patrol, because they are under the guidance of Joe Biden and his administration, are forced to process these people and bring them in. And we as a state are going to say, no, no more. We'll stop people at the border, and we're sending them back around. If they get across, we'll send them right back across, back into Mexico. And we're going to ask Mexico to help us like they were before with President Trump. We need their assistance, and we might need to play a little bit of hardball to get it. But we will make it worth their while to help us control what's happening at the borders, because we will not sit here when I'm governor in Arizona and have the narco terrorists and the cartels running our state. It's going to stop in January of 2023 when I'm sworn into office.
Would you try to challenge the Supreme Court's unconstitutional decisions in Playa Video of 1982 and Arizona versus United States of 2012, which limited states' ability to crack down on illegal immigration? Just last year, Governor DeSantis and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton announced that they are intent to challenge those SCOTUS decisions. Would you be on board with them?
I would definitely look at that. I mean, my main goal right now is to protect the people of Arizona and stop additional people from coming across illegally. By the time I make it into office, Joe Biden will have been in office for 2 years. We will have 5 million people who've come in illegally. What I can do is enforce the laws we have on the books right now. It's illegal to smuggle human beings in Arizona. Human smuggling is illegal. And so we can go after people for human smuggling. We can go after people for hiring people illegally, and we can push the E-Verify system and force employers to use that. We can go after people who are breaking the laws on the books, and that's what we intend to do. Restore law and order, stop people from entering illegally. And I'll take a look at what Ken Paxton, I have a great deal of respect for him and Governor DeSantis. And if that's something that we should be joining in on, we will do that if it will help our situation and if it will protect our citizens. But let's face it, it doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. you can't possibly be for having a border in control of the US, in control of the hands of these narco terrorists and cartels. They're pumping in fentanyl at a level we've never seen before. We're losing hundreds of thousands of young people to fentanyl poisonings, and Arizona is the main pipeline for those drugs coming into America. We will no longer do that. We will no longer allow that to happen, and we're going to push back. I don't know who's for this. What kind of demonic people would be for having human beings smuggled, children being trafficked, and drugs being trafficked? It's sick what's happening, and it's even more disgusting to know that our federal government is taking part in this. And I say that because they're not stopping it. And by not stopping it, it means they're partnering with the cartels, and we're not going to allow that to happen, not in Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last issue that I would like to get your comment on is the COVID vaccine mandates. And I find it remarkable about you that you not just oppose the mandates, you actually point to the elephant in the room. You explicitly say that the shots have been shown to have significant deadly side effects while providing little to no protection against contracting COVID-19. That's the direct quote from your website. And, many Republicans tiptoe around the issue and say, well, we're against the coercion, but we do recommend people getting vaccinated. So what made you taking such a bold stand against the federal healthcare authorities on this matter?
I just think that whenever the fake news, whenever the tech tyrants are telling you you are prohibited from speaking about a certain issue.
Right.
That makes me, as a journalist at heart, want to dig more into that and say, why are they so opposed to us speaking about this? And as I dug into these vaccines, I started to read stories of people who were having major side effects. We have 2 people on our staff who lost loved ones shortly after getting the shot. These were not people who were unhealthy, and they died. And we have many people I know who've had COVID, really bad cases of COVID, and they're double, triple, and quadruple vaxxed. And yet many of the people that I know who haven't been vaxxed haven't had any of these problems. They pushed an experimental shot on us, and they forced people to choose between working, putting food on the table for their children, or getting a shot that they weren't comfortable with. That's un-American, and it goes against our most basic God-given rights, and we will not have that in Arizona. We're not going to force people to do medical experiments in order to put food on the table and work. And I will push back, and I will fight, and I will fight every day to make sure that people have the right to have their medical privacy and medical freedom in Arizona. And we will be pushing back against these masks. If any of these schools start to try to mask up our children, we know these masks are unhealthy. It causes our children to breathe in their waste, and it hurts their ability to learn. And we will not be masking our children when I'm governor of Arizona. And any school that tries to do that they'll be facing a lot of issues with the governor, because we are going to make sure our kids go to school and they can breathe fresh air and they can learn and they can hear. And a lot of things went wrong in the last few years. And because of the censorship and our inability to speak out about what was going wrong, because we were fearing being canceled or losing a job, we allowed for a lot of our freedoms to be taken away from us. And we need to fight to get those freedoms back and never let that happen again. We need to hire strong governors, vote for strong governors, because it's all going to happen at the state level.
Ms. Lake, I would like to thank you so much for your time. Please tell us what's the best way to follow you and support you.
Thank you for asking. You can go to my website, karilake.com. It's KARILAKE.com. And you can go and find out where I stand on all the issues. I believe that our solutions to the problems we're facing are going to be good for all Arizonans, whether they're Republicans, Independents, or Democrats. And you can make a donation if you care to. We need to support strong governors in our border states so that we can secure our border and make sure we maintain our American our way of life.
Thank you very much again. All the best.
Thank you.